Hey, Andrew, man, I need your help.
What do you need my help with?
Well, I'm on OrbitDVD.com, and I am trying to figure out what to buy, and there is so much to choose from. Where do I start, man?
Well, you can start in a couple of different places. They conveniently have all of the labels laid out for you in two separate tabs, one by U.S. companies and one by import labels, and they also have employee picks, so you can get some kind of expert advice from people who actually work in the store, giving you recommendations.
Well, I like that. That's that video store touch that Orbit DVD has, and the reason I'm in such a panic is because right now there is this coupon code that us from Chasing Labels and Over DVD are bringing to you, which is a 15% off coupon code, and it is a one-time only use. You can only use it one time, so please choose wisely.
Yes, and you can also stack it upon their great deal where you get any 3 items and you get free shipping, so you can add that code on top of that for some extra savings, and the coupon code is CHASE.
Yes, so please go to OrbitDVD.com, pick up some Blu-rays, and use that coupon code CHASE at checkout. Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm your host, Stephen Billings, and as always, with me is your other host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Steven. Doing good. We are back here once again this week, a little bit earlier. Well, it's earlier for us in terms of days, but this will probably come out the exact same time as it always does. So not early for anyone else. And this is episode number. What are we at? 67.
67.
It's 67.
Yeah, we're getting there, man.
It's a good thing I guessed that right. It's a good thing I guessed that right, because every single week I always forget, and I always forget to frantically look at my desktop where I have the audio files saved for last time, so I'm frantically looking around for it, but I thought I'd just throw it against the wall and see what happens. But, Stephen, once again, we are joined by another guest, a relative big-time guest, because I feel like we've talked about this person really weaving in and out throughout episodes, throughout the entirety of this podcast. So we're lucky to have them on now. So, Stephen, you do the better intros than I do. So
Jesus.
Take it away.
I told him before this that he was going to do it because I don't want to mess up his name, but I'm gonna do my best. So, yeah, we've been talking about this man. First of all, you've known him for being director of content at Arrow Video for, I think, 12 years. He's there for a good while and did a lot of great work over there. And now he's decided to venture out to do his own new label called Radiance. And that is the man, Fran Simeoni. Did I say it right?
You did. Thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ooh, thanks, man. It's been...
Pressure's off.
Yeah, God, I feel so much better now.
Mystery solved, though. Mystery solved.
You did good.
But, thank you. So yeah, Fran, thank you for joining us. I've been trying to. I talked to you at the beginning of this year, trying to bring you on when I thought you were the you were the director of content at Arrow, and that's why I was bringing you on. I was like, I got to get somebody from Arrow on. But then I think in the middle of that, stuff was happening behind the scenes that nobody knew about, and I think we got a first hint of that through Kat Ellinger, because we had Kat Ellinger on, and she had mentioned she was going to be working as a producer on some things, and we didn't really know what that meant yet, and I think now we know. Was that connected?
No,
maybe?
It wasn't. That
no?
Was,
man.
I know what that is. That's something else.
Okay.
I didn't speak to Kat until I think it must have been early June. So I left Arrow at the end of May, and I couldn't do anything until I'd completely gone, so I didn't speak to Kat until I've set up the company, basically. I wasn't. Some companies will do like a gardening leave or stuff where you've left the company but are not doing anything, and that wasn't the case for me. I was working up until the day I left, and the next day it was like new hat on and completely different approach and ways of working. So yeah, it was very much one day one thing, and then next day something else. So so back when you contacted me, it was and always was. Arrow was just continually busy. When I started in the industry, people said to me, "Oh, it's seasonal. your summers will be quiet, and the end of the year will be very, very busy. And I thought, great, oh, that's nice, quiet summers. And it just wasn't the case at all. And it was for 12 years, it was just unrelentingly crazy all the time, which was great. I mean, it's nice to be busy and always have stuff to do. But yeah, that meant that luxuries like doing podcasts and stuff was sort of never on the table.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying when we got closer to the summertime, you'd said something about like, well, I'm going to be I'm looking at going to some festivals and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, you don't want to miss out on any of that stuff. I mean, that's I've been to one festival in my life and it's awesome. And I'm like, God, going to film festivals is just, you're around your people,
Absolutely.
and that's, yeah, you don't want to miss out on any of that. But I guess to get it out of the way, you did kind of talk about it just briefly here, but like the leaving of Arrow to start your own thing, how was that transition? It went all great and everybody was cool. And did they know your intentions for why when you did it, or any of that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind talking about it. I left Arrow on good terms. I still talk to the guys. I spoke to the
Yeah.
guys today, actually. Nobody knew prior to my leaving. I couldn't really say anything. It was, much like leaving any job, really. It's kind of like you got to figure out what you're doing next. And, for me, it just happened to be my own thing rather than the process of going to interviews. So it was a slightly different process in that I had a lot of thinking to do, and that was sort of very different and new for me. I've always been a kind of salaried employee everywhere I've worked for my whole career of 20 years. So that was something to get my head around. But in terms of the actual leaving of Arrow, um, it was a bit of a strange time because, as I'm sure you're aware, a few people left. So Ewan Kant, who I worked with for many years, left just before me, and that was just coincidence. He just wanted to do other stuff. So it was a bit odd that a sort of few of us were leaving at once. But when I told them, they were just like, "Yeah, understand, and that's great, and best of luck and everything." And lots of people offered to help and support me, and I've had a lot of well wishes and encouragement from the guys there, which is great. Um, but equally, of course, having been there a long time, they were also kind of shocked at the same time. So it was kind of mixed feelings from most people I spoke to, really.
Yeah, I mean, 12 years is just a long time when it comes to any job, really. But I mean, it's, you know, when you're working in something like film, any kind of, even though it's home media, it's like, you know, sometimes you want to branch out and do something that where you can control it a little bit more. And I think that's, now you're not only, I mean, you're in charge of the whole thing now. So now you get to look at, how the money's spent and where it goes to completely, and really go after maybe some things that you find that need to be, had some light shed on. I think that's part of what the mission statement seems to be with Radiance, is to really shine the light on some real just hidden gems that are just, and that's what the first slate shows me, is that we're going to get some like just real like deep cuts. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting for me as well. I mean, I'm really enjoying it, and what you say is absolutely true, because you know the work is hugely important, because what I was doing at Arrow had eventually become, as it was, a senior position where I wasn't too involved on a day-to-day basis, and that wasn't a sudden thing. That was a kind of evolution over many years, and it got to the point where in the last however many years of my work, I was just kind of doing, well, boring stuff, really, like budgets and leadership stuff, and company direction, and all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't like researching and looking at films and reading through archives and subtitle QCs and stuff that at the time I was sort of glad to get rid of, because I did them for years and something new was exciting. But through that journey, I ended up at where I was thinking, oh man, I'd like to go back and do all that stuff. So now that I am doing that again, it's a huge amount of fun, and I'm sort of enjoying going back to the beginning, and
Yeah.
and that's what's getting me excited. And much in the same way, that whole element of discovery kind of takes me back to not the beginning, but when I suppose I really got into boutique labels. So probably like early 2000s when I started buying BFI DVDs and started sort of watching my first extras, and that's when I sort of got really exposed to films that just kind of were a bit off the list. Like around that time, I was, I guess, like early 20s or something. I was sort of working my way through the top 100 of this list or that list, and I was getting to the point where I had everything. But then there were these labels like Masters of Cinema was going around that time, and they'd just come out with stuff, and it'd be like, well, what the hell is this? I've never even heard of it, but it sounds cool. And you'd watch this stuff, and you'd make new discoveries from these different labels, and I felt like that had gone away a little bit for these kinds of films, at least. Like we're getting loads of genre stuff, we're getting loads of kung fu stuff. That's great, but I think there's a whole other section of cinema that's kind of fallen through the cracks a bit. So that's really what I want to do with Radiance.
Yeah, and going, I guess, going even further back into your, love of not only boutique label and collecting, just going back to your early life, I guess. We like to like get people's origin stories and stuff. So where did that origin of love of movies start for you? Was it at a very young age, or did it progress over time? How did that all come about?
I think that's a very, very young age. I mean, I don't know why, but I loved watching films from a baby, and my mum told me that I watched Jungle Book so much I wore out the VHS, and
Nice.
I just don't ever remember not watching films. I mean, sort of almost obsessively. Um, I remember as a kid, starting to build my own VHS collection, recording stuff off TV, making my own labels, having everything in order, and that's when I was like 10 or something. And then so my granddad was always really into films. And I think he was sort of more into collecting than he was the films themselves in a way. I got that off him, the whole making the labels, and he had a little catalog and he'd number everything so he'd know where the VHS was. So I think I kind of got that slightly anal, obsessive attitude to it from him. And I, there was a VHS club essentially where you could join and just buy from a catalog. And I managed to convince my dad to let me join that. You had to be 18, but I used his credit card. And I was getting like
Nice.
Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs and stuff when I shouldn't have been. Goodfellas and all the Scorsese, all the crime, violent crime films I shouldn't have been watching. And it just progressed from there. And I was never thought about working in film, but my first job, I was really lucky. My first interview as an adult happened to be for a cinema company, and I went in there as a trainee accountant. Essentially, that's what I thought I was going to do. And I turned up with like an HMV bag because I'd been there before the interview, and they were all like a bunch of nerds, and we just sort of connected over films and stuff. And I managed to get this job, and I went in there and I saw what the accountant did, and I saw what the film programmer did, and I thought, oh my god, well, I want to be that guy. I want to be the programmer. So I stayed with that company for quite a long time actually, and then basically went back to university and studied film because I had skipped university thinking I'd study accountancy. So lucky for me, I hadn't wasted a degree, and from there I progressed into the sort of more creative side of the industry. I worked in events and marketing, and then did a few other bits and bobs, and then found myself at Arrow, and yeah, here we are, 12 years later.
I yeah, I was just going to ask, were you aware of Arrow, before you had gotten there? Because I remember Arrow being first time I ever heard of Arrow. I think was mid to late, I would say late 2000s, when they were putting out really genre stuff, things mostly horror. They were mostly known as a horror label, I think, at the time. And I know being in the U.S., importing had just started to become a thing, really in the late 2000s, because we were just starting to figure out region encoding when it came to Blu-rays, which I guess we're all still trying to work through that stuff nowadays. All these years
Some
later.
are. We keep telling everybody, buy a damn region-free player. Stop messing around.
I'm just saying,
it.
just because like some people, even to this day, I have to remind people, which countries are in which region. I know we deal a lot with Australian imports now, and I'm like, yeah, those play here perfectly fine. You don't have to really worry about
that. The roles are murky sometimes out there in the Australian
rules are
area.
a little murky. Even like some UK titles will say region B on the back, yet they'll still play perfectly fine. So I know that was the case. I'm speaking of Arrow, the Jodorowsky set. I know that was a specific thing where I wanted to get the Jodorowsky set, and there was one released here and one released by Arrow. And then I saw people online saying, yeah, the Arrow works in Region A players, so you can just buy that one. So I was like, okay, I'll buy that one. And that's how I ended up getting that. So, but yeah, that's just a region thing. But were you aware of Arrow's kind of reputation before you had, work there?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very aware of Arrow and who they were and what they did. I bought their stuff. I mean, I was buying VHSs from Arrow actually. They were when I
Oh,
was
wow.
shortly before I was working from them, they were still sort of selling VHSs on eBay. And that was how I managed to see like Zed and State of Siege and other sort of rare stuff. Like some of that stuff's not even out in the UK still. So I bought stuff from them, like Louis Benoit films. They did a neo-realist box. So I had quite a few Arrow, did like the Eric Romers, the Claude Chabrol's, the Fassbinders. So they had a really good catalogue, and that's what attracted me to Arrow. Was how good that catalogue was. And I knew that they needed some improvement, to put it politely. And I thought I could make a real difference there. So that's why I took the job at Arrow, because I'd also pretty much gotten a job at Studio Canal as well. But I just sort of thought I'm just going to be a tiny little cog in a big machine. So I went for Arrow and no regrets.
Yeah, you were training since you were a child to be the boutique label head of a boutique label,
exactly.
content.
Yeah. When you mentioned labeling VHS tapes, numbering, and all kind of cataloging, I'm like, that's very boutique labelish.
Yeah, the boutiques before the
Yeah, I never even
training
thought of it
forever.
like that. It's just like back there in the past. But yeah, you're right.
Well, I think we had the same realization with Eddie Muller, because when we talked to Eddie Muller, he talked about, I think, how he really got into, was it? It was something similar.
He was collecting comic books.
Yeah, collecting comic books.
That's where his first love was.
Yeah, and
which was really cool. I didn't know that until he had come on and said that. And talk about collecting comic books. That's all about really organization, cataloging, keeping track of certain storylines, names, titles, all that kind of stuff. It's collecting's all kind of share similar things depending on what you're collecting. But I also wanted to ask, I think over the last, I would say 10 years, even the last 5 years, there's been such a, I don't know if you've noticed it being, inside the industry, there's been such a boom of boutique label when it comes to the different studios, as well as just I think the catalogs now, the back catalogs have really opened up to where you're able to put out a lot of diverse things. I don't know if you've noticed that being inside for so long.
Yeah, I do think things have really grown in a really interesting way, in the market as a whole, really. I mean, the UK's got a lot of good labels. There's always been a lot of labels in the UK, but the US has grown, exponentially. I mean, I remember when I was looking at doing Arrow US, and at that time I sort of thought, I think we'd done like some blaxploitation films, and we'd done all the Italian genre stuff at the point I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, if we just did this in the US, this would be great because no one's doing this stuff that much. And then by the time it sort of got together, Kino really stepped up their game, and they'd done like a bunch of blaxploitation films, and so they sort of cut into our plans a little bit. And then like more and more,
Kino does that. Kino does that.
yeah,
Ironically, so we rib a little bit about Kino, but I think it's all in love on here
Yeah,
because their output has been so massive that I think it's kind of a
a joke. It's
cinephile's
almost a
dream a bit.
joke. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
they're putting out everything, and we're like, I never thought this movie would see the light of day, but there it is, you know. But
exactly. I mean, I think
not
that's
to cut you
the
off.
kind of the trouble with it, isn't it? Because do have so much. It's very easy to miss stuff. So you kind of be looking for something and be like, oh man, I wish this was out, and then sort of just look for it and think, oh blimey, Kino released it 3 years ago. So it's great
Yeah.
that they've made so much available. I know it's not quite to everybody's taste in terms of the way they release things, but sometimes if they hadn't released it, it may not be out at all. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, I wanted to mention so what you were talking about earlier with collecting and cataloging, because I listened to the podcast before, and I know that you ask your guest this question in terms of are you a collector? And I was thinking, God, if I'm on the podcast, what am I going to answer to this? And I thought about it, and I realized I'm not really a collector. I would not put myself in that category anymore, because it occurred to me that I think, and that also goes with what you were saying in terms of how the market's evolved. And I think the collector has evolved. And these days, the collector is sort of more about like packaging and slipcases and toys and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not really worried about that sort of stuff. I would sort of classify myself much more as a cataloger. So I kind of like will obsessively like collect directors' films and put those together. And I'm much more about kind of building my own catalog. Whereas I'm not so fussed about like, oh, I have to get this or that edition or keep this bit of the packaging. Like when I was coming up with the packaging for Radiance, I kind of thought, oh, the Obi strips would be great because people can just throw them away. And then after designing it all and thinking about it, I thought no one's going to throw the Obi strips away. They're going to collect. They're
Nope.
going to keep them,
No, no,
and that's fine. They
there are
will
people.
just come out, or you can put them behind the sleeve or whatever. But that was the way I come at it. I'm coming at it more as like I don't want this stuff on the sleeve, so I'll throw it away. But I think collector-minded people are going to think, "I'll never throw that away. You're crazy." So I think there is a bit of a distinction, and I think there are people out there who are sort of more about cataloging and they're into the films themselves rather than like whether it has a rigid box or not. So I think that's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting distinction that's come
It is an
about.
interesting debate and things because I think there's like the world of collecting movies or collecting anything is so diverse within itself. There are different people who there are some people I've seen buy like 5 or 6 or 7 different versions of a movie because the packaging is different,
Yeah,
or or whatever the case may be. And I guess that's their prerogative. If they have the money to do it, then I guess do it. But I understand, the idea because I think you're just giving an update about Radiance and discussing whether to use hardback, rigid boxing and stuff like that. So it seems like things at Radiance are ever evolving. Um, I know that at least every morning there's a new updated tweet about something going on over there, and it seems like all of this is kind of happening, progressively over the last few months about acquiring things, deciding which titles to release, which titles not to announce to be released, all these kinds of things. And I guess kind of getting back onto the Radiance track is like how has that all been going the last few months? It seems like a whirlwind.
yeah. I mean, it has. There's. You're right. There's always something going on. I mean, just to answer the question about the packaging. I mean, whilst I say I'm not like a collector and worried about that stuff, I do appreciate it and I do like it. I just think it's not the sole reason that I go for things, but absolutely, if I have one in my hands, I think, oh yeah, this is nice. It's
Yeah.
it feels
We've
sturdy and
discussed. Yeah.
substantial, and
Yeah.
for me, it's a vessel for something else. So for me, it's a vessel to have like a nice big fat book. For me, that's the reason to do the rigid case release.
Yeah, I think it all comes down. I think I can only speak for myself. I can't really speak for Steven or anyone else listening. I think it all comes down to the film itself, and then I think everything's kind of built around that. Like the core of I would say a release is the movie, and then everything around it that's built up around it is kind of I wouldn't say window dressing. I wouldn't say anything like that, but it just like you. I think as a collector, at least for me, I want to feel like my money's well spent.
Mm.
So when you have a thick booklet, hard casing, variant, different artwork that's reversible sleeve, all these extra things that Arrow's thrown in, a lot of other companies have adopted as well. You feel like you get more bang for your buck. Essentially, that's what they say. But I think it does come down to the movie itself and your relationship with that movie. I don't think that's exclusive to that. If that's, anything like that. But it feels also like sometimes people will buy. I know, Steven, you've done this where you kind of blind buy.
Oh yeah.
Movies,
Well,
and then like the packaging is also nice, but it turns out the movie's great as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say we've discussed this. We've had these collector discussions before on here on many different occasions, and I'm with you, Fran. It really. I always try to tell everybody it should start with the film, and even if you haven't seen it, say you're blind buying stuff, at least you should put in some effort to like look into the movie. Does it interest you? Does it really interest you, or did you just did an eye test and you looked at it and you're like, ooh, that looks cool, and then oh man, it's got 5 posters in it, look into the movie, because you should watch the thing when you get it. Don't just get it because it's part of a line of this label and you just want to buy all of that label, and you just have to have everything of that label. Look into it, see if, because I'm with you. I'm a little bit looser. I wouldn't consider myself like a curator of my collection necessarily, because I do buy things that I might, because I try to open myself up to everything, like even things that I would consider to be like schlocky. Like I have, a lot of stuff on there that wouldn't be considered good movies, but there's something about them that I find charming, or maybe there's an importance because of maybe who they're connected to in the film history. So I like to have all that stuff, and it's great, like you said, Andrew, when it's got great packaging along with it. You feel like it feels more substantial. It feels like the money I put into this it's going to hold up over time. So that's important, I think, to everybody that collects things. They want to feel like it's going to sit on the shelf and not fall apart.
Well, shelfware is a thing, but I guess some things, fall apart less quickly than others.
I'm passing this on to my child. Okay.
Oh, I guess that's true. That's your inheritance.
That's her inheritance. Yeah. She's going to be taking all the
packaging durability is the thing. I've got a box set that doesn't exactly keep me awake at night, but I know it's there, and it's completely fallen apart and just completely eroded from just the tiniest bit of water damage, and it almost haunts me. So yeah, no, it is definitely a thing. But with the packaging, one thing I really want to try and do is not make any box bigger than it has to be. So even multi-film box sets, I kind of want to make as slim as possible, because I think we're all suffering from a lack of shelf space these days. So I'm trying to figure out how to
You
make
can't see it, but I
as,
have no more shelf space.
Yeah, nor do I. They're like in multiple rooms. And
it's
getting a bit crazy.
Yeah. I think, I know you know, it's weird to talk about other labels, but I thought Severin has done some really great packages lately of like that all the Hans BR set has got so much in it, but it's really not the biggest set you could buy out there. It's actually pretty condensed for what's in there.
Yeah, for me that's perfect. I was really inspired by that and it's a great collection as well. They did a great job on it, and exactly that. I got that and I thought, this is great. More labels should do this, because this kind of gigantic box thing, I could do without it.
It's fun. It's fun. But then you get it up there and you're like, well, I could have put 5 or I could probably 6 more movies up here. Just taking up all the space.
Well, I like certain box sets are like you said, all the Hans BRs, even the Arrow box sets. They're compact, functional. I'm literally surrounded by movies, so I just pull them out of everywhere. I have. I have years of lead here, and it's simple. It's three cases in a box and a booklet. That's kind of all you need, really.
Yeah.
It works out. All the discs aren't rubbing up against each other. They're not in sleeves or anything like that. They're not sandwiched between cardboard. Perfectly functional, and it fits on your shelf no problem. So it is all it is all depending on, I guess, what you like, but also depends on, what's actually functional and all this kind of stuff, and affordable, of course. I think
He wants to make
there's
sure you
always
can
the
get his
financial thing in there too.
yeah. He wants to make sure you get as many Radiance films as you can on your shelf. So he wants to
That's
keep
very
it.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's very true. I guess we can get back to the Radiance thing, like I was saying. How has all of that been going over the last few months? Because we're very appropriately have you on right as you've released the first 10 or announced the first 10 movies that are going to come out. And then I think the first four that are going to be, that have dates already. We're going to get into that relatively soon. But how has that all been, going, transitioning, and like I said, working all the time, seemingly so?
Yeah, it is very, very busy. There are lots of social media platforms to keep up with. Not least the one I've created, which is like the members only area, which is really interesting and fun, and it's completely new because it's kind of creating a forum essentially, but like a locked in one. And excuse me. So that's really good, and I'm really enjoyed having the direct contact with fans. And I think one of the things that was quite successful that people seem to really appreciate from all the tweets that I was doing in the kind of lead up was the transparency. And that's something I just, coming from a sort of a larger company and certainly towards the end with a more corporate background, something that it couldn't really do with Arrow. And I think something a lot of companies can't do because, you've just got a lot more stakeholders. But right now it's just me. So I can kind of say, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I thought people would find that interesting and that they have. I'm kind of determined to keep that going. So as soon as I stop doing that, people should definitely remind me to keep
I'll
it
message
going.
you. So
Because
what the hell? I
it's
haven't seen
fun,
an
and
update. Yeah.
I like doing it, and I think it just kind of adds to community, and it kind of brings everybody together, and it builds other people up. I don't mind talking about other labels and stuff like that. Um, you know, where it's necessary or appropriate. All the labels, not all the labels, but a lot of the labels are on, really good terms, or, we are friends, a lot of us. So absolutely. But in terms of the work itself, yeah, it's crazy. There is a lot to do. I mean, I kind of sometimes think whether I'm going crazy with the work because I am doing a lot more than I think we used to do. And in part, that is me sort of proving myself, as much to myself as it is to anyone buying the discs. But like every single booklet, I'm just like more, more, more. So at some point, I think things might settle. But the initial releases they're really loaded. Like the booklets are not going to be short. I'm working on a booklet at the moment, it's like 3 or 4 times longer than the sort of standard booklet, which is good, but yeah, it's keeping me busy. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting, and same for the extras. So there's loads to QC, there's loads to subtitles, there's loads of contracts to do. So yeah, I'm kind of working all hours, but really enjoying it. So, and I think that's the key thing for me.
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
to be doing something I'm passionate about.
Yeah. And so, do you have a favorite part of all that? Like, do you have a favorite part of any of that? Like, do you like dealing with the artwork or developing special features? Like, what is like your favorite part of that whole process?
Ooh, I mean, there's bits of all the processes that are definitely fun. I mean, I think it might be easy to answer what's sort of the least fun. I mean, I think when you're kind of watching the film over and over and over again, that can get a little bit monotonous. I think I like just putting everything together. I like kind of reading through like the booklets and the specs, and I don't know, maybe that speaks more to my kind of organizational anal personality. But yeah, I kind of like putting everything together. Um, the briefs and the artwork and the specs for the authoring and talking about who's going to be interviewed and all that kind of back and forth conversation with like Kat and Tom and Stephen, who's on the technical side, or David, who's on the authoring. I like all of that stuff. So I like
Yeah,
working with people for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say you like organizing with other talented people, and you're gonna get something good from them. So then you're just waiting for that to come in, and just the kind of the almost organized chaos is kind of fun for you.
Yeah, definitely. It does sort of feel like organized chaos at times. But yeah, I mean, I think part of the fun of it is developing it. It's starting with one thing and sort of saying, well, what if we did this, and what if we did that, what if we got this person, and maybe it's about this thing, and then by the time you've had that conversation, you sort of end up with something, and that's really exciting because you're sort of creating on the ground. So that's really just exciting to be involved in and working up.
Yeah, and I think so far just from the first slate, and I know when I've talked to you, when I've messaged you about some things about like, I asked you about like, because you got a January bundle of the first couple releases, but then you said, I don't know, we might keep doing that, it might not. How's it been like? Like, because I love the idea of that removable card to cover up the markings, and then you've decided to do this gold member package where it's get the first 3 years. Is there still some other ideas like that that seem to be kind of almost? I mean, because that card thing is kind of a new idea. Like, obviously, we've had graphic cards on releases before, but this is specifically to help you, cover up them ratings markings that people don't like. Is there any other kind of like little things like that you're trying to come up with to be unique in your label here?
Not specifically. I mean, not in terms of like anything on a regular basis. There are other things that I'm thinking about that I'd like to do, like books, and maybe other kinds of merch. I did actually develop a T-shirt that I thought would be quite cool, and I wanted to do that, and it wasn't. And there are still other things that I might do in that vein, and they weren't just company logo T-shirts. I wanted to do stuff that I want to wear. So I had like I won't go into specifics, but like film stuff, film terms, and film kind of not logos, but things that film geeks basically would recognize and be like, oh, that's the thing from. I wanted to do that kind of stuff, so I may still do that.
Yeah.
For me, what I haven't announced, it's finding the right supplier, getting the quality right. What I had, I decided wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So that could be something. And then there's books, which I would like to do, and I'm just kind of figuring out the right thing. There was a bunch of films that I wanted to license, and they're really good, but I spoke to the director's estate, and unfortunately, all of them are trapped in music clearance issues. And I offered to pay for the music clearance for one of the films, one of the most well known and best, possibly. And we spoke about it. I got quotes, we went back and forth, and then ultimately they decided they weren't really very comfortable with it. So it's a huge shame. The films are all on YouTube. They can be watched, not at the best quality, but they're okay. And I thought, well, they're kind of still missing the extras. They're missing the commentary. They're missing the thing that people probably want from a Blu-ray, which is just like, give me a bit of context, give me a bit of background, so I can kind of get more out of this, which these films absolutely need. So I think maybe that could be a book, which I think would be fun, given that the films are probably never going to come out. So stuff like that, just keeping things going, even when potentially there isn't something to do there for a Blu-ray. There's an alternative potentially, but just books either side really, because there might be topics that could be worth discussing, and I think that could be something that goes like through the members packages potentially in the future, and then sold maybe on the side. I'm kind of working it all out, but yeah, just kind of keeping the creativity high and hearing back from fans and seeing what they want and kind of what works for people.
Cool. So the name Radiance, is there a story behind what why you chose that name? Is it just something you like? It just sounded good, to you?
I mean, I suppose there's a story. I don't think it's a good story, but
let us judge. We're going to judge you. Here we go.
it
Yeah,
was
no,
really
let's judge
hard.
you.
I will say that choosing the company name is one of the most difficult things that I've done in all of the company setup. I wanted the name to mean something. I didn't want a kind of made up word or something. And many things that I kind of went to, many terms or ideas I had were already in use, or I thought if somebody Googles that, it's going to be a nightmare. So that was difficult. And then I was happened to be reading this book on Italian cinema history, and I was reading about how when Italian cinema was born, it was all in different cities, and all these companies had these different names, and they were all cool as well. I like those, but they're all taken as well. So it was like Lux and Smeralda. I forget the English of that, but the way that this was described in the book said the radiance of these companies, and I thought, oh, radiance, that's quite nice. And it made me think of like light radiating from the screen or the TV, and I kind of thought, that's good, let's do that.
Yeah,
and that was it.
That's a good story.
Here.
Yeah.
Can you hear the clap on it? Yeah. No, it's a good. It was not a simple answer. You gave us a story, and I think it came from somewhere.
Yeah, and
I just kind of thought that the name will only mean something when it has titles to it. So
yeah, exactly.
People might not like it
Very
to
true.
begin with, but once they've got 10 releases, they'll be like, yeah, it's just whatever. Used to it now.
Yeah,
this is Radiance.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are Radiant titles.
Yeah.
These are Radiant releases. Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. A little double. Yeah. The alliteration there. I like the tie to how you got the inspiration from cinema or even cinema history, specifically Italian cinema history, which I think is fascinating because that's a whole other kind of discussion and things to go into. But yeah, that's a really good idea. So good story, very good.
And you
story.
do have you have some Italian cinema in this first slate.
Yeah, good transition, Stephen. Well done.
I know, right?
Because I want to get into these releases because there are 10 of them. And
Yeah.
since we have Fran here, I wanted to get his inside reason as to why he chose these, and the diversity of them is very interesting because you've got literally, while we're on Italian cinema, you have some Italian cinema, you've got American cinema in there, you've got all kinds of things. So I guess that's as good a transition as we can get to these releases, Stephen. So yeah, you can find these releases at radiancefilms.co.uk. They're all up for, I'm assuming, pre-order now. So get them while you can because they are limited to 2,000 copies a piece, if I did read that right.
Yeah. Or from MBD.
Yeah, I got a feeling. Yeah. So I got a feeling these are going to, sell really, really well.
Yeah,
really, really quickly.
that is a question. So is it 2,000 limited to like overall, or is it 2,000 here and 2,000 at MVD?
It's 2,000 per territory essentially. So I'm doing it the way we did it at Arrow. So I've always kind of felt that it's more clear that way. It's clearer for someone who's looking at a listing in the US. Regular consumer is probably not thinking, oh, I wonder if this same thing is listed in another territory. And for me, it's a different license, it's a different sort of fee. So that's my kind of separation. Yeah. So yes, 2,000 each territory.
Cool. Well, that gives everybody a little bit more of an opportunity too, because
especially if you're always wondering that.
Yeah, if you're region free and you can buy from either one, you're like, well, if it runs out here, I can buy it here. So that's good. That's good. But all right. Well, let's just go down the list each film and kind of just maybe talk a little bit about each film.
I guess we should start off with what we know is coming out, relatively soon, starting in the new year. In the new year, straight off the bat, we're going to be getting 2 films. We're going to be getting The Working Class Goes to Heaven, or Lulu the Tool, as it was titled here in the U.S. Interesting title if you've seen the movie. And then Big Time Gambling Boss. Those are the first 2 releases come January.
Yeah. So, Fran, what you had these group of movies that you were you were like, okay, these are my I got 10 here that I can basically say I'm ready to go and go ahead and show them to the world. Why these first two first? Because it's big. The first two films that are going to be, when you go years from now and Radiance has gotten 200 films in its collection, or, however far we are, you got to be like the number one release.
Yeah. When these are sold out and going for triple the value on eBay, why these two?
Why these first two here?
I'm really happy with the first two, actually. I mean, when I sort of started and I had a bunch of things I wanted to. My starting list was 800 films ish, so I had a huge amount, and there's lots of genres and lots of eras and things I wanted to do. So I didn't really think about what the first releases would be because it was that wider playing field. But when it came down to it, I'm really happy with these two because Italy and Japan are probably two of my favorite countries for films. I mean, they're the sort of the two of the wells that I've dipped into the most. And I think these two are really, you mentioned earlier, Andrew, about standing the test of time. I think these two absolutely will. The Working Class Goes to Heaven's a Palme d'Or winner. It's an amazing performance from Gian Maria Volonté, who's, such an amazing actor. And here, it's such a great performance from him. And I think this is a film that definitely gives a lot more with repeat viewings and with the context from the extras as well. There's a lot in it that I think is probably missing from people's viewings of it before. I saw it from the Minerva DVD in Italy, which has got English subtitles, and I know a lot of people have that disc. And I'd seen it on that however many years ago and enjoyed the film. I'm a big fan of Elio Petri, who for me just is such an amazing filmmaker. And I liked it. I like Investigation of Citizens Above Suspicion better, and then the sort of other stuff. And I thought, yeah, these were all good. But I came back to this one. I kind of thought this one really deserves to have a good release, to have a Blu-ray, and it's got a really nice restoration. And working on it just deepened my appreciation for the film. It's been so good working with amazing people like Alex Cox and the guys who did the booklet, Roberto Curti, who wrote the book on Petri, and Eugenio Renzi. So I've got two Italian writers on the film who are really bringing really interesting context to the film from a social perspective and from a cultural perspective. And that's what I'm going to try and do with as many releases as possible, have people from the country talking about the film, or people with a very high knowledge of the culture. And yeah, I think it's going to be a big discovery for people. It's a really amazing film. It's talking about interesting things which are really relevant for our time at the moment, but it's also funny and just a bit mad as well. So it's got a huge amount to offer. And then Big Time Gambling Boss. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I think me and Andrew both got a chance to watch it before this.
We did.
Yeah, and yeah, and yeah, it was fantastic, and yeah, it is funny. The scene where they're having sex in that small car, hilarious.
Yeah. The most realistic presentation of sex in a car I've ever seen.
Very uncomfortable
for Europe, at least,
awkward.
Anyway. Smaller cars.
It is a film that is, I would say, timeless in its political themes. It's, for those of you listening, it's dealing with like workers' rights and unionization and stuff like that. Stuff that I think people are still fighting for today in terms of, fair wages and all fair practices, all this kind of stuff is seemingly a timeless thing because they can never seem to fix it, regardless of wherever you are. So it is a rather timeless themed film and very, very good, as you said. And Elio Petri, I think, like you said, Fran, Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion is probably a film many, many people know because Criterion has had that Blu-ray out now for many, many years. I know I have it in my collection somewhere on a shelf, I think, as I look over. So yeah, you're right. It's a fantastic film. It's definitely a discovery, especially if you like, that previous film. This one goes along with it because it is a social commentary, as the other film is.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like you said, it's timeless, the themes, and just a film that came out a few years ago makes me think about this movie, and that's Sorry to Bother You. Where they are like, literally by the end of the movie become workhorses. Like it's kind of got that same kind of thematic, taking advantage of the worker kind of stuff. And it's, yeah, it really is, and I was also thinking about films before it, like On the Waterfront, and just so many things. Like it is really just it is a great, first couple titles to have in your when you're starting a new label, because it is very much something that I think people will discover, and then you'll be like, damn, this is just one of them great Italian movies now. It's just like I think it is a really good first one. I didn't get a chance to watch Big Time Gambling Boss. No. So Andrew, I know you said you watched it.
No, I did not get to see Big Time Gambling Boss either. But I did want to also mention, it reminded me a lot of Sorry We Missed You. Sorry We Missed You, the Ken Loach film.
That too,
from 2019, which is kind of very similar. This idea of kind of the industry, the work industry, kind of just doesn't treat you like a person. It treats you like a cog in a machine. And you got to do what they tell you to do as proficient as possible, or else they'll just replace you, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, in this movie, Lulu Lutul, I mean, they literally got people walking around writing down the times of how long it takes them to do things, and just really on top of them, just micromanaging just every little thing that they do. And you're just like, Jesus, is that how it is? Yeah, it is. It really is.
and factory work is still very much a thing. It's you're on the assembly line, as they say.
Yeah.
There's literally a scene in the movie where they're on an assembly line.
I've done it. Guys.
It's so beautifully filmed as well. I mean, the cinematography is amazing, but the way that the camera moves throughout the whole factory, I think, throughout the whole film, but particularly around Volonte as well, is amazing. I think it's
and Ennio Morricone's only acting role. Ennio Morricone shows up at the end of the movie, his only time on screen ever.
And his score is amazing for this as well. I mean, most people would be thinking, it can't be as good as this, but it's one of his best, I think.
Yep, definitely. And so, anything on the big time Gambling Boss?
So I mean, that's another one really fortunate to have managed to get. Really, it's an amazing film. I think it's really interesting because it kind of bridges the gap between earlier sort of samurai films. So it's a period set film, but it's a Yakuza film. So it kind of bridges the gap between that sort of more traditional kind of cinema and the kind of Fukasaku films that would come later. And it comes from the same screenwriter as Battles Without Honor and Humanities. There's obviously a bit of lineage there, but it's a really good film. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And for me, it's a bit like, I think I described it to someone as like The Godfather. As The Godfather is to crime films, this is to Yakuza films, in the way that most people kind of think, well, Goodfellas is a crime film. So Goodfellas is like the Fukasakus, and this is the sort of slightly more moody, contemplative, character-based crime film, like The Godfather is. And it's got, two great stars in it, Koji Tsuruta and Tomisaburo Wakayama, who are both really good in it as well. And Yamashita, I think, was a really good director. I haven't seen much of his work, but he's beautifully directed as well. And I think a lot of people are going to really like it.
Awesome. So next we got let's talk about
February.
Yeah. I was going to say Miami Blues.
Okay, good choice. That's exactly where I was going to go too.
Yeah, Miami Blues. Let's talk about some Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was really interesting reading up on this because I've just been going through all the reviews to kind of do a contemporary review section about how the film was received when it came out. And it was basically a cult film from the get-go. I mean, the Variety and Hollywood Reporter and all the key trades were like, this is going to sink. This is just, no one's going to watch this. It's just too weird and violent, and they said it was good. Most people were like, it's great. And Alec Baldwin is brilliant, who was then not yet a star. And I think that was partly his problem. He'd just been in The Hunt for Red October, and he didn't have like the breakout for him as an actor quite yet. And then he's kind of the lead role in this, but then also Fred Ward is kind of the lead role. And it is really violent. There is like, you know, wince winceable violence in this, like fingers being chopped off and stuff. Spoiler alert. Um,
Ah,
and it's like a Tarantino movie before Tarantino. I mean, it's got that kind of blend of humor and violence that in this film is just handled so well. And when I was watching it, I just couldn't believe Alec Baldwin. He's so good in it. He is absolutely brilliant. Um, and it's just such a fun time. And it's a really well made film. It's kind of like if you've seen Jonathan Demme's Something Wild and how Ray Liotta is absolutely psychotic in that movie. Alec Baldwin absolutely goes toe to toe with Liotta in that as a psycho in this, but really funny as well. And I don't know. I mean, we kind of used to avoid comedies at Arrow because comedies traditionally wouldn't really sell that well. But um, I'm just going against that and doing a few comedies here. You know, this is you could argue Working Class Goes to Heaven is a comedy. It's definitely got tradition from Italian comedies, that film, and then this is a comedy as well. And I've got more besides. But this is, I mean, everyone should watch this film. It's brilliant. It's so much fun.
I think it's important to shed more light on comedy because in almost every, you know, area of cinema, like like for instance, like award shows, like they never get any spotlight on them at award shows, and there's just, I mean, sure, there's some formulaic comedies that still come out a lot today, but every once in a while you get a really great, you know, drama comedy or some kind of, maybe even a horror comedy, and they just get kind of like thrown to the side, like they're not, it's like it's like it's super easy to make things funny, because that's almost worse than making you cry. It's harder to make you laugh than to cry.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I definitely agree with that. And this
Yeah, I
is
would say,
genuinely funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
comedy is probably the most subjective genre when it comes to movies and whatnot because comedy, what's funny to one person is never really funny to another
Yeah,
and vice versa. But it's interesting the Jonathan Demme comparison because I didn't even think of that until you mentioned it. I just because we just recently watched or covered Married to the Mob, which is getting
great film.
a Fun City Editions release. It reminded me a lot of that. It's in that same like almost borderline satiric humor, like that dark humor. It feels like Miami Blues also feels a lot like Get Shorty, the Barry
Yeah,
Sonnenfeld film from 1995. It not quite as like comedic as that, but it does have that kind of blend of the gangster film with the comedy, and it's a little light, but you shouldn't be laughing at certain things because the Alec Baldwin character is a despicable person committing crimes,
mm,
like horrible crimes. Also, really stellar cast in the film. Early roles for, I think, people that you're going to be well aware of. Think like Jennifer Jason Leigh is in the film. She had already been around, Fast Times at Ridgemont High and other films up until this point. But Fred Ward is another one who was mostly a character actor, and he does take on more of a leading role. Like when it comes to screen time, he's probably on it a good amount, and he has a great role in this film. He plays, for those of you who don't know the film, he plays the cop basically hunting down Alec Baldwin's character, who's recently transplanted himself to Miami to continue his criminal ways, if you will. Fresh start, but still the same old person, essentially. Uh, uh, yeah, it is a really good. It's a good movie. It is streaming now on various platforms. I'm pretty sure you can find it for those of you listening. But yeah, I really enjoy that film. But Steven, what is the next film? I think is A Woman Kills, if
Yeah,
memory
Woman Kills
serves.
is the other February release. Yeah.
I wanted to watch this movie so much.
Me too.
One, because it is 68 minutes long, and I was like, oh yes, I could squeeze this in amongst all the other movies I'm watching. But two, just it's an interesting, fascinating kind of small condensed film that I kind of wanted to check out.
Well, the
But
premise
luckily,
the premise is intriguing. So,
yeah, but
yeah.
luckily we have someone here who probably knows the film better than we will ever know it.
Yeah. So, yeah, talk to us about a Woman Kills.
yeah. So A Woman Kills is a really interesting film with a really fascinating backstory. Completely unique. I can't actually remember how I first stumbled upon it, but it's I'll start. Where should I start? At the beginning. Well, essentially, so Jean-Denis Bonat, who is the director, had started out as a cameraman for like a news organization. So he'd like go off and shoot footage in various countries and so on for news reports. Along with his friend Jean Roland. And they were doing this job, and in between, they were trying to sort of make short films and stuff. And Bonan had made a couple of amateur films and then made this film called The Sadness of the Anthropophagi. And this film, as all films were at the time, and maybe still, submitted to the French authorities, basically. And they saw this film and they were sort of so enraged that they banned it outright, even from export. So he kind of had a bit of a black mark against his name, but he carried on and he made a couple more short films and then eventually started putting together A Woman Kills. And he had shown the rushes to the producer Anatole Doman, who produced films for Godard and Alan Rene and Valerian Borovchik, is like one of the most successful and brilliant producers in France ever. And he really liked what he saw. So he said, gave him lots of encouragement, helped him out with stuff. And when the film was finished, he shopped it around to all the distributors. And the problem was that the film was being made right in the middle of the May 68 riots. So it's kind of more trouble again after the ban and now this. They even stopped shooting the film during the day so that they could film the riots. And Jean-Luc Godard gave them money to do that and everything. So real sort of crazy production. But the film itself has got elements of horror, but it's also got a bit of crime going in there as well. And then there's some nudity. So the film's sort of quite, for 1968, confrontational. So the distributors looked and they said, okay, yeah, there's nudity, but it's not a sex film. There's crime story, but it's got this other stuff in it as well. And it's not quite a horror film. So they just sort of said, we can't categorize it. And with the whole ban and everything, it just seemed a bit sort of dangerous. So they rejected it. And he just kind of gave up at that point. I think maybe it was all a bit too much for him. So it sat dormant basically until 2010 when a programmer at the Cinémathèque Française would play kind of rare things and things that people had never seen before. And all these people came up to Bonan and said, where can we buy it? We want to watch it again. We want to show it to our friends. And he was kind of like, well, you can't. And the distributor who ended up releasing the film was eventually told about it. So they finished the credits and put the whole thing together and put it out in France. But because France had rejected this film initially, they said, hey, let's show it in Switzerland at the Lausanne Film Festival, a very small festival. So it didn't really get seen internationally. So it just got released in France and nobody knew about it until I came along, basically. So yeah, it's much better than the backstory, I think. And as a filmmaker, he deserved a lot more because it is a really fascinating film. I mean, it's kind of a bit Dressed to Kill, but a bit kind of Polanski and a bit kind of true crime. It's really intriguingly made and got this crazy score and the themes a bit. I mean, there's loads going on. It's really I kind of almost don't want to spoil it too much. I just kind of think best for people to just kind of dive in. But I was a bit nervous about it because I kind of thought, oh my God, it's completely unknown. But everyone who's watched it that I'm working with are like, wow, it's like what a find and like, oh my God. And so it's got really good feedback from everyone who's working on it. And the short films are really interesting as well. I mean, Anthropophagi, the film that got banned, is great. I think it's got. I mean, it's humorous, feces eating, which predates Solo, but also just like crazy visuals and yeah, just really interesting. The whole it's interesting to imagine the whole area of film that could have been going on had this film been distributed, like in opposition to the new wave, because you had all those kind of filmmakers who were all kind of what we know now as French cinema, but you had in the background like this guy and Borowczyk and Jean Roland, this kind of other French cinema that was like more, funny enough, the title of the documentary on the disc, On the Margins, and it was all sort of slightly more risque and confrontational and just really exciting, and it kind of is in the shadows a bit and deserves definitely to come out.
Yeah, and you're once again you're pushing the Radiance name. You're picking something super like just. I love the backstory. That makes me. I'm about to
That makes me
pre-order
want
it.
to watch the movie even more.
I'm trying to focus on you, but I really want to just pre-order it. Go ahead and pre-order it. Like
the fact
I'm
that
doing my
it was
job right then.
banned, yeah, the fact that it was banned, I think just adds to its mystique.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, oh, why was it banned? I guess I got to watch it to find out.
yeah,
Anything
and
like
the fact that you can't get it anywhere else, it's like, well, I guess
well, okay,
here we
guess
go.
we
Boop,
got to get it now.
boop, 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 boop. That's me ordering it.
Yeah, like, wow, that sounded like you were on a. Like
That sounds like I was on an old phone back from the '90s or something.
yeah,
like
that's exactly what it sounded like.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But
That's that. God, it did. Yeah, that's you sold it. You sold that one definitely.
yeah, so no wonder why we couldn't find it to watch it because it's
Yeah,
so
Yeah,
scarce.
it's really unbelievably rare. But yeah, I'm really proud to be distributing it. And it's going to be a really
Awesome.
nice disc.
nice. All right, so let's head over to how about Filler Up the Super. This one, I'm picking this one because it has one of my favorite kind of descriptions. Cloik drives a station wagon with his friends. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah,
So can you
I must admit, I
can
really
you say more about
struggled.
it?
I sent this to Craig Keller, works on our booklets, and he's doing this one. And when I sent it to him, he was like, "Oh wow, great, this is awesome." And I sent it to him. I said, "Can you look at the synopsis? I just don't think I'm selling this." And it is a bit of a tough one because you're right. There's not much plot there, but that's exactly what makes it really interesting. Um, for anyone who kind of likes movies where people just kind of hang out and talk and it all feels like really real and it's just really sort of touching and emotional and like just when things are written
So
that well
so
you just
slice of life.
yeah kind
Yeah.
of but also just kind of a bit coming of agey. The characters are all kind of fairly young, like in their 20s and 30s. um and yeah, it's just sort of feels something that you can easily connect with, and it's just so naturalistic. It's a really interesting film. I was thinking, oh, I should look this up, but I don't know the first films that were made in this way. I'm sure it's not the first, but this is that whole kind of Richard Linklater thing where the cast and the
That's
director,
exactly who I was thinking about.
yeah, they sit down and they workshop, and they actually all got credit for writing the script. So you can see at the top of the pack shot that's written and played by the cast, and quite unusual for the time or even now. Supposedly, I haven't checked this because I'm still waiting to hear back from the director. But supposedly the cast and the director all got equal pay as well, which is something
Wow.
completely unheard of for any time, I suppose. But that's quite nice to hear. And yeah, it is just such a charming film. It's just so brilliantly made. Kind of, yeah, a bit Richard Linklater, but also for anyone who's seen like Kiarostami's films like 10, where it's just all in the car, it's kind of like that as well, but just so intriguing and such a pleasure to watch. It's like a real hangout movie.
Awesome. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I like the Richard Linklater comparison. Road trip movies are kind of a favorite, subgenre of drama, or can be comedies as well. Can be
Yeah,
both.
this is comedic for sure. The sort of shenanigans they get into on the road.
Of course, that seems to be inherent in a lot of road movies where people always get up to stuff that they wouldn't have gotten up to had they not been on the road.
What's the one we watched recently for the show? Was it Fandango? Isn't that the one with Kevin Costner? Where
the Warner Archive release. Yes,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
he and his buddies go on like a road trip because I think is it Kevin Costner's character's getting married. One of them are getting married.
Nah, I think it's one of the other ones. Yeah.
Okay, and then they go on
Yeah.
one last road trip as like as buddies because I think it's actually like the end of their college years. So they're like in
Yeah,
their early
yeah.
20s, gonna go on a road trip together. They're gonna go visit to like where they filmed. Oh, I think Giant, which was
Yes. The James Dean film.
James Dean's last film.
Yeah.
They're gonna go like visit where they filmed Giant or something like that. Anywho, but I'm thinking of even something you mentioned. Like you don't know what one of the earlier kind of road trip movies is. I'm thinking of Il Sorpasso, the Italian
Oh, yeah.
film that Criterion's put out. Really underrated Criterion release, underrated Criterion, movie that they put out. I know Martin Scorsese championed that movie, and that was kind of the reason why I blind bought it at the time. But it reminds me, I just think of that of kind of like the precursor to a lot of what we think of when we think of the road trip movies. Two people in a car driving to a destination, and it's not so much about the destination; it's always about the trip getting there. That's always what it's about.
And another discovery too, think of another one that just popped in my head, came out from Fun City Editions, Radio On.
Yeah, I thought about
yeah,
that too.
great film.
Yeah, more of a pessimistic movie, but
yeah, definitely. But a road movie and a
nonetheless, yes,
Good
it's like a
soundtrack.
solo road movie.
Yeah, great soundtrack.
Great
yeah.
soundtrack.
Sting shows up in there. He's just playing his
I have
guitar.
it around here somewhere.
Yeah.
I was almost gonna impress you by pulling it out, but I think it's
pulling
behind
it
me,
out.
actually.
Yep.
I think it's behind me. But yeah, I was thinking of that as well. So we're on the same
right.
page.
Well, let's.
Another movie I wanted to talk about is She Dies Tomorrow, because that's a recent film. And I remember when this came out, I think, was it last year or the year before?
Before,
you want to see a
2020.
rather, 2020, a film that's very art house-ish, very avant-garde. What was the thought process putting this out? Are you a fan of the movie?
Yeah, I mean,
Kind of what I wanted to ask.
I'm a sucker for kind of sci-fi and anything sort of slightly post-apocalyptic, which this film had that kind of vibe before I saw it. And when I did get around to watching it, I really liked it. I loved the style of the film, the themes, and the things it was talking about. And I sort of thought, well, why isn't this on Blu-ray? I mean, this should have a Blu-ray. So I mean, I wanted to do a recent film because although I love films from like 60s and 70s, definitely, I think there's new films being made all the time. Sometimes it feels like there aren't as many, but they're definitely out there, and I think sometimes they just need highlighting. So that's kind of what I wanted to do with this film. I think it's just about kind of propping up the new generation of filmmakers as well. I think they kind of need as much support as the old films, because otherwise they're just going to kind of get relegated to streaming, and I think a lot of people, who buy boutique labels, they're into buying discs, so the new films deserve it just as long as they're carefully curated, and that's definitely what I plan to do.
Yeah, and what you're doing with the old films will only happen to the new films 40, 50 years from now.
At some point.
You're just getting ahead of the game,
Yeah,
really
exactly.
very much so. And this film definitely fits within a boutique label release, no doubt. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, it did come out 2 years ago. I think directed and starring Amy Seimetz. I probably butchered that pronunciation. But it's an abstract existential film, really to the nines. Really up to that point where there's an impending doom happening. Like, I think it's like there's some type of contagion, but it's not quite a virus. It's not quite anything like that. Just everyone kind of knows the world's ending, and they kind of, get a psychosis because of it, if I remember correctly. And it's very, very interesting considering the times in which we live in, and when this movie came out, really right before the world really took a devastating turn in terms of our existence as human beings. With the pandemic, with COVID, and just that that sense of panic, that real sense of existential panic that we all kind of went through over the last couple of years. And this movie is definitely kind of a little bit of a precursor to that type of mentality. So I really enjoy the movie, and the weirder a movie is, the more I tend to gravitate towards it. So it was right in my wheelhouse.
This is for anyone who hasn't seen it. This kind of drew a lot of comparisons with David Lynch's work, which I think is quite apt, because at one time it's sort of quite dark and full of dread, but then it will just be funny. And I think the film is really well observed, like especially when there's like a dinner party or something, and it's kind of picking out the absurdity of like life basically. And Amy Simon, obviously, I've spoken to her about the film and stuff, and she was adamant, which I think is obvious once you've seen it, that it's not a COVID movie, it's not a pandemic movie. It was obviously all made prior to that, and just
beforehand.
was
Yeah.
unluckily released, right in it basically. And I can't work out whether that hurt the movie or helped it. A lot of people have seen it. It got really good reviews, but it still seems under the radar. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember a lot of people seeing it. Um, People who like kind of indie film, people who I can't remember what its release pattern was because
it
I
was a
don't know if it
neon
came
release,
out.
and I think it just kind of
Yeah,
went like
if
straight
it
to
was
VOD.
VOD.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say it was probably VOD because everything shut down so quickly in 2020. It would have
exactly.
gotten that.
Yeah,
It probably would have gotten the festival circuit if we had
definitely.
a normal
Yeah, yeah,
festival circuit that year. It reminded me a lot of like a Louis Buñuel film, something like Exterminating Angel.
yeah,
Something like that where it's so like specifically. It's supposed to be satirical, but also rather serious and dreadful at the same time.
yeah.
Something like that. But speaking of kind of more kind of I would say indie or avant-garde directors, we have a Todd Solondz film here in Welcome to the Dollhouse. This was a film I had seen several years ago. What made you choose this Todd Solondz film specifically?
Well, it was basically it was available, and I just really liked the
Oh,
film.
oh,
I,
two things that go hand in hand.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it wasn't one that I was kind of seeking out, funnily enough, because I hadn't seen it. I'd seen his later work and enjoyed it. Well, I say enjoyed, but I mean, I think they're good. I like Palindromes in terms of its craft and what it says. It's a good movie, really good movie, and Happiness too. Um, but after seeing those, I kind of thought, well, what am I in for with Welcome to the Dollhouse? But I watched it and I just thought it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And I thought this deserves to come out. People need to see this movie. If they're put off having seen his later work, thinking, "Oh God, it's going to be really dark and all that kind of thing." This is definitely a lighter one, but it's just so well observed, and it's still got all the sharpness from his later films in terms of like his acerbic wit and just really capturing the honesty of youth. I think that when you're a young teenager, it is really hard, and you do take everything super personally, and it is kind of brutal. And I think it's one of the few films that's really captured that so honestly. So I thought it deserved a good release, and it hadn't had one yet. So I thought it was a good opportunity.
Yeah, speaking of coming of age movies, yeah, this is a good one. And I think I did you watch this, Andrew?
Oh
You said,
yeah,
you
I'd
said,
seen Welcome to
yeah.
the Dollhouse years ago. I don't even remember where I'd seen it streaming. It may have been on Filmstruck.
Well,
Going
yeah,
back to the Filmstruck days, which I say Filmstruck days as if it was like some bygone era, but it was only a couple of years
a
ago.
few years ago, but
It just
but yeah,
feels like forever ago.
it is. I agree with you, Fran. It's very or Fran. Sorry, it's very sharp. It's very just a very unique. It has some very unique comedy angles to it, like where things are dreamlike, can be dreamlike, and I love the relationship with the brother. The brother is like super smart and just kind of it's kind of like the mentor figure, try to help guide her through all this craziness, and he's just really super honest with her, and like it's just great. I love that relationship, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Her
So yeah,
relationship to
that's
her
that's
family, I think, is really accurate as well. She's a middle
yeah,
child and she's just completely ignored, and yeah, and
yeah,
at that
Yeah,
age as well, yeah, it's
the middle child syndrome. The Jan Brady from the Brady Punch. If you could use a comparison there, and ask me how I brought that up. I just think of that. But yeah, Todd Solondz, such a unique director. I mean, for those of you not familiar with his work, he did, Welcome to the Dollhouse, which is his second feature film, and then his third feature film, which I think a lot of people maybe know a little bit more, is Happiness. If you're interested in a film that is the complete opposite of its name, That is the movie Happiness, because it is a dark, twisted film like you would not believe.
Very dark.
One of Philip Seymour Hoffman's earlier roles, John Lovett's in the film, Dylan Baker, Lara Flynn Boyle,
I,
talk about a
I think
Twin Peaks
I think
connection.
Andrew Furtado from Severin brought up that he's like, where is that Blu-ray release?
Yeah, I've been clamoring for a Blu-ray of this for a few years now. I remember going to the used movie, DVD store and seeing it on the shelf and not buying the DVD because I didn't know what it was at the time. And of course, by the time I figured out what the movie was and who Todd Solondz was, the DVD, someone had already bought it. So there it goes.
Gone.
It is gone. So I'll wait. I'll wait for a Blu-ray release at some point. But yeah, that's Todd Solondz's film. But there are a few other releases here. I don't know how much more time we have you, Fran, but I think there's about 3 more releases that we have to discuss a little bit. Red Sun, which is, I believe, another. Is this an Italian film?
German.
Okay, I was slightly off. I was in the right continent, wrong country.
Yeah, Red Sun's another really interesting film. I mean, I think much like A Woman Kills, super obscure. But I have Killer Janice to credit for this one because she covers it in her book House of Psychotic Women, and that's how I first came across it. Literally just going through her book, thinking, "Oh, that sounds really interesting," and just finding a copy and going from there. Really, um, but it's a really fascinating film for so many reasons because it's just sort of made in such an unconventional way. Like from a production design point of view, the film's sort of really plain, um, and that's part of the aesthetic. It's kind of all about what's happening in terms of the actions rather than the design of the film. Um, but from a plot point of view, really intriguing as well because it's about a guy who's kind of down on his luck and he manages to hitch a ride to see his ex-girlfriend, who's played by Uschi Obermeier, who is a kind of cultural revolution hero. She was in Commune One, supposed sort of girlfriend of Jimi Hendrix and Mick Jagger and all these sorts of people at that time, and just seemed to just live this absolutely crazy life. But she was like a model and an activist, not really an actress. But she's just in this film, and she's in this like commune with her friends, and they've made this pact to kill their boyfriends after 5 days, so that they don't have like any attachments. So it's all women's liberation movement stuff. But he doesn't realize this, obviously. So he's like, you're just waiting for him to kind of get bumped off, basically. And there's other guys around who don't realize as well. And it's just super sort of like late 60s, early 70s, with the vibe and the soundtrack and the aesthetic. And it's just a lot of fun.
Great. Then one of the last couple ones we got here. Let's talk about The Sunday Woman. I think this looks to be another Italian film right here.
That's what it was. Yes. I got Red Sun and
yeah. So this one is this is a really interesting film because I think some people will have seen this before and maybe kind of hit them wrong because it kind of looks like a giallo, or maybe it looks like a kind of Italian police film, but it's kind of got bits of both of those genres, but it's not really either. It's much more of a comedy. So it's written by Adrian Scarpelli, who are 2 writers who wrote all the classics of the Italian comedy boom in like the 50s and 60s. Like Il Sorpasso was one of them, but they didn't write that one. But they wrote all these classics, and they wrote this, and it's almost like kind of a riff on those genres, but like a very sly deviation of it. And it's got a great cast: Jean-Louis Trintignant, Marcello Mastroianni, Jacqueline Bisset. And it's just this really fun whodunit, basically. It's like an Agatha Christie mystery. And it's a huge amount of fun. The cast are fantastic in it. And it just plays really, really well. And Luigi Comencini, who directed it, was an amazing director who people just sort of don't really know. He was really well regarded in France and in Italy. But in France, as the French do, they really revere him. They have a good sort of habit of knowing how to celebrate people, and he's got some really great films that we're working on. We're working on two of his films. So yeah, lots to discover there. He's really awesome.
Little hint out there, people.
more
So
more Italian films on the way from Radiance Films. And I think what's the last film we have here, Stephen? The Man on the Roof.
Man on the Roof.
Man on the Roof is. I mean, this is if there's any crowd pleasers, it's Man on the Roof. I was speaking to Bill Lustig earlier actually, and this if this doesn't sell it for people, I don't know. But the opening scene, he said to me, was an influence on Maniac. And yeah, it's a dark film in terms of like the start, so much so because it was completely revolutionary, the Swedish film. Because Bo Widerberg, who directed the film, was an established director. He was like the first major director in Sweden after Bergman, but he didn't like Bergman. And most Swedes apparently also said that Bergman's boring. He's always talking about God. He's always talking about all this stuff that most Swedish people can't relate to, and that's why Widerberg didn't really like him, basically, or like his work. He was more interested in reality and what real people could connect to. So his film to shake things up was Man on the Roof, which was influenced by the French Connection. He basically saw the French Connection and said, "We can do something like that." His whole idea was to do something better than that. And Man on the Roof is just a great thriller. Basically, it's like a kind of policier. It's about in the opening scene, a cop gets murdered, and his other cop buddies basically looking on the crime, try and find out who it is, but the killer's always kind of one step ahead of them, and it ends up with a man on the roof, and it's a real great thriller.
Yeah, this sounds like it could have been in that Years of Lead set, maybe. Got pulled from that, potential there, but no, this I love it. I love the Policia kind of Italian films. I'm starting to discover more of that, and yeah, it sounds great. I mean, and I love the cover. I love the cover, that image of like the helicopters. I'm on this poster that I'm seeing. I should probably go over to your well, it is the same thing. It's the original poster. So yeah, I love that image of the helicopters, and the people and the guy jumping down from the that's great.
Yeah, I try and use original posters wherever possible. It doesn't always quite work, but yeah, that's always an option, or on the reverse.
Yeah. Well, Fran, you gave us an hour and a half of your time, and I'm sure as soon as you're done, you're either going to go to sleep, maybe finally, or because it is late for you, or you're going to go right back to work. So either way, we don't want to hold you up anymore. But we really appreciate you coming on and giving us some behind the scenes on Radiance, and we really best of luck for you going forward. And we're gonna we support you. We know a lot of the other boutique fans are gonna support. They love seeing new boutique labels come out every day, and just helping us discover new parts of cinema that we're still that even though we have the world at our fingertips with the internet. We don't know where to look, but guys like you seem in labels like yours seem to help us. You're doing the work for us.
You're doing the curation for us.
Yeah, thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thanks very much for having me. Sorry. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and yeah, hopefully you'll have me back when I've got more films to talk about.
Yeah, that would be great, man. Yeah, when we get to a nice another chunk of slate, get a little bit further down the line, we'll bring you back. We'll reassess. We'll see if you changed your mind on anything. You're like, you know what? I'm just gonna do Canadian films now, or just
or
no, I'm just
whatever
kidding.
the thing may be.
No, there's already a Canadian International Pictures. We don't need another.
Very true.
But yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Andrew,
thanks for coming on. It's been great. It's great to meet you. It's great to get an inside look to what you've been up to for the good portion of your life, essentially, and what you're going to continue to do for a good portion of your life. Hopefully so, because we're all excited about Radiance Films and all the releases coming up. Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks very much, guys.
And of course, go to what's the website again? Radiancefilms.uk.
Yeah, it's radiancefilms.co.uk. You can also pre-order, I think, these if you're in the U.S. at, like, Diabolic has these available to pre-order right now. MVD, Grindhouse, Yeah, Grindhouse has it.
Grindhouse will be up
And
till Monday. They're on
Okay.
Amazon.com. The US releases are. Um, and yeah, hopefully in stores potentially in the new year as
hopefully,
well.
hopefully, Orbit DVD, our partner, will reach out to you to get these at their store. Because
Yeah,
Orbit DVD is
I'm
fantastic.
sure it's all
they
in
will. Yeah.
progress. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Fran. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Okay. A great interview.
Yeah, it was great.
With Fran, and we're really excited for all the stuff that's coming from Radiance Films. Like I said, there's 10 movies that have been announced so far, and I think he and Radiance have much more to come, because I think he released a whole breakdown of like which films from like each different country that he's got coming
Yeah.
up. And if they're releasing, we didn't ask him, but if he's releasing about 2 a month, that should get you through almost the first half of next year, at least through up to
Yeah.
May.
Yeah.
So that's really, really exciting. But we're probably going to transition right now to some stuff that was announced this week. First off, there's a couple of interesting updates, Stephen, that I wanted to mention. Both coming from Sight and Sound, I believe. We finally got an update on
Wait.
Hitcher.
You said sight. You said Sight and Sound.
What
You
did
mean
What did I meant? Second
Second
Sight.
Sight.
Good gracious me! Sight and Sound is the
Publication.
French film magazine.
Yeah.
Ironically, there's been so much Jean-Luc Godard mentioned in the news this week because of his passing, and of course he and that whole generation of filmmakers from France most of them started out writing for Sight and Sound magazine. I don't know what that must have been popped in my head. But yeah, Second Sight has new information about the Hitcher. So this has been a long in, how do you say it, Steve? Long in production or highly anticipated release for a while now.
It's been in the pipeline for a while. I think they just have been waiting to get the most elements they could to do this
and to get
4K
everything
release.
kind of lined up for. Initially, they weren't able to do a 4K, but because they couldn't get their hold on the original elements. But then they got a hold on the original elements, and that's what they're working with now. But as of yesterday, I should say as of September 15th of 2022, that was what yesterday would be for us, but not yesterday for people listening. Here it is, the Hitcher update, exclamation point. Very excited to have our initial grading session with director Robert Harmon next week. We will spend several months on the 4K restoration, which is scheduled for completion by end of February. A big thanks to Robert for all the support he's given us with the release. So I don't know if this means that it's coming in February or that they're going to have all the production on it done by February. But either way, this release is still coming, so that's still good to know.
Yeah. So it's definitely we're probably looking at early next year, sometime
next year. Hopefully, I would love for that to be the case. And then there's another update here. There's been a Martin update, I think. We're still working on the Martin I want to say Blu-ray release.
Because initially the last update we got was that they unfortunately could not get the 4K together to, get what they wanted together to do the 4K, so that there would still be a Blu-ray. And now the new update is that it's going to be out before Christmas.
Yeah, they're in the final authoring stages, and pre-Christmas release date will be announced soon. So obviously, once that's announced, we'll update our listeners on that, because I know this has been in the works since we've started this podcast as well. It seems like Hitcher and Martin have been like two of the earlier movies we talked about getting releases, and we're still waiting on them, a year and a half later or so. But those are the two kind of updates.
There is one more thing.
Oh, there's another one. Steven's got another one.
There's actually been they have a new release that was announced for October.
I didn't even see that. What is it?
It's called A Banquet. Is the name of the movie.
Okay. Oh, I did see that. Here it is. Yeah. A Banquet limited release for October 31st, which is Halloween if anybody's keeping track on their calendar.
No. Wait a second. I thought America decided that the last Saturday in the month was going to be the new Halloween. I'm just kidding. I heard somebody
God,
talk
was
about.
like, wait,
I
they
heard somebody
changed that
say
up on
something
me?
about like I heard people complaining that that
Well,
the
the whole
31st
point of
doesn't always land on the
Halloween-
weekend.
I was gonna say, you know what's
Yeah.
interesting? I wouldn't be surprised if they do that because of kids going out trick or treating. It's safer and easier for them to go out on Saturdays because parents work during the week and then they got school and all this nonsense. But the whole point of Halloween is that it's on All Hallows Eve, right before All Saints Day, if you're Christian and whatnot. But it's supposed to be that late because that's when isn't it when like the veil between like the afterlife.
You're talking
and
about
our
something
life is,
fantasy
I'm
oriented.
talking
so I
about
don't know.
like folklore and stuff. I don't know. I'm talking
It's
about some
supposed to
pagan
line up
stuff,
with
I
the
guess.
folklore.
I'm talking about all like Sam Hain and all that kind of cool stuff that people keep thrusting into horror movies and TV shows. I'm thinking of Supernatural, I guess. I don't know. But yes, A Banquet is coming out. This is a film I don't know anything about, Steven. Do you know anything about it?
No, I know it is. I know it's a feature film debut of director Ruth Paxton.
Yeah, this is a film that came out in 2021. The
so
synopsis on
really new.
IMDb is a widowed mother is radically tested when her teenage daughter insists a supernatural experience has left her body in service to a higher power. Sounds a little Exorcist vibey to me, or some type of possession or something like that, which is something we've seen in many movies.
It seems like it seems like in their wheelhouse because Second Sight seemed to keep up with some culty movies, but also newer directors and specifically female directors. I think of Jennifer Kent. Her films Babadook, and also her other film
Nightingale.
Yeah, Nightingale is here. So I feel like they have a kind of a target, kind of theme going with younger filmmakers, a lot of them being female filmmakers, and kind of spotlighting that in their collection. So I'm all for it. Have not seen this one yet, but it seems like something worth checking out. So, and as usual, their limited edition rigid sets they look immaculate. They look nice.
They're cool. They're quite cool.
But that is the Second Sight news. Let's move on over to, I guess. Is there any other little tidbits?
There's one release here that I think a lot of people have been not buzzing about, but it's worth mentioning definitely. And there's a new Vestron title, a new Vestron release in their series of movies, the collector series, and that is Earth Girls Are Easy. And this is definitely an 80s cult movie. 1988, Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans. Talk about that's before. I mean, man, that's
This
before
is like
Jim
the
Carrey
same year.
was even in
This is the
living
same
color.
year Beetlejuice came out.
Yes, it is. And this is right after Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis were in Cronenberg's The Fly. Ironically, they have a romance in this film as well. A way more optimistic movie than The Fly is. The Fly is a Shakespearean tragedy of a movie, if I've ever seen one. Earth Girls Are Easy is much lighter. It's a comedy. It's a lot of fun. And Vestron's giving it quite a deluxe release here. There's an audio commentary. There are interviews with the director. There's interviews with other people who worked on the movie. I don't know if this movie's gotten a Blu-ray release before. Maybe. I have to look that up right now as I stall for time. But Steven, have you ever seen Earth Girls Are Easy?
I don't think so.
I
I
just
feel like
watched it for the first time.
I feel like I should have with the cast, but I don't think I ever got a chance to see this one.
Yeah, it's streaming on like Tubi and places like that for free, obviously with commercials. But yeah, this is the worldwide premiere of Earth Girls Are Easy on Blu-ray. I had never seen this movie, but I had heard about it for many years. I was thinking about it while watching. I probably have seen clips from it or reference to it or all kinds of stuff. For some reason, you know what popped in my head, Steven? I don't know if you remember this from the 2000s. Do you remember VH1 had that series like I Love the 70s, I Love the 80s, and all that kind of stuff? They probably talked about it on that at one point because that was a series, for those of you listening, Maybe those of you didn't experience this, but when I was in high school in the early to mid 2000s, they had that on on VH1. Yeah, VH1. I want to say, or MTV. I don't think it was MTV, but where they would it was a series where they would just go like each year of a decade, and they would interview like celebrities and people about certain like pop culture type stuff, like what was a popular movie, what was the popular music, celebrities, political scandals, or uh, all this kind of stuff, celebrity gossip and whatnot. And they probably mention Earth Girls Are Easy. For those of you who don't know the movie, these three aliens land on Earth, and they land in Gina Davis's pool, and then she has to she takes them in and tries to teach them about to fit in and stuff, because she doesn't want people to discover that aliens have landed and whatnot. And she and Jeff Goldblum's alien character develop a romance and whatnot. She's engaged to some typical 80s movie asshole of a person, and it's things are complicated in that realm. But Gina Davis is such a great actress, especially at that time. And then, of course, going forward, she would become not only a movie star, but, of course, an advocate for women in film. And she just won a special award at the Emmys last week for her career and her achievement in the movie, TV industry, and whatnot. So she's a beloved figure. Just
Yes,
an
definitely.
absolute beloved figure.
And you can look for this film not only online, but probably at your local Walmart.
Yeah, do they get a lot of Vestron?
Yeah, Vestron a lot of
Vestron
times
stuff?
is in Walmart. Yeah.
I think I remember you sending me a picture one time of you at Walmart holding up Vestron titles. I don't know why. I got that
There's
feeling.
usually end up showing up there. So you just check it. If you want to get it right off the bat, pick
And I
it
know
up
a
in your
lot of
hands.
people. A lot of people collect all of those titles.
Yeah.
A lot of those earlier ones are kind of tough to get, and of course, also especially tough to get is getting them with the slip covers, which people, of course, are obsessive collectors over, and which I kind of am a little bit myself. But Steven, is there anything else before we get into kind of another bigger slate of the week? I feel like this has been a bit of a slow week. If it wasn't for Radiance Films in this next slate, not much to be talked about.
No, it's a little slow, but that's okay. Indicator usually would pop in this week, but I think because they filled us out for the year, they might skip this month unless they, pop back in and say, hey, this is a preview for next year.
We still have some time. It's only only midway into the month.
Imprint posted something, but it is television oriented.
Yes.
So
yes, they did.
So they haven't yet posted a film slate yet. So we'll just, I think, go right into our last slate, which is the Criterion Collection.
That sounds right. There was one other thing here that was fascinating to me. I was going to bring it up, but it's not even a company we cover. It just surprised me.
We can cover whatever we want, Andrew.
Oh, I guess that's true. Well, there's no rules here.
There are no real rules, but
there are no rules. To quote, I was almost going to quote John Goodman in The Big Lebowski, but it's a different line. It's not exactly
Don't worry
apropos
about
to
it.
what we're saying. But there's this company called Cape Light Pictures. They're putting out a 6-disc Ultimate Edition, numbered collector's edition of All Quiet on the Western Front. There's a 46-page booklet in there. There's a 3-disc media book available exclusively in this edition. I don't know. There's 5 Blu-rays and 1 DVD. I just found this to be just fascinating to me because one, it's a classic movie, one of the earliest Best Picture winners. I want to say the second Best Picture winner when it comes to the Oscars history. It's the Lewis Milestone film, All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm pretty sure everyone's kind of watched this in their history or literature class at some point in schooling, maybe. But yeah, this is fascinating. It contains 4 different dubbings of the movie. Obviously loaded with special features and a different cut in there as well. Interesting. Just so interesting of a release. I just thought that was fascinating because it's a Universal film, and I would think Universal would be putting this out in 4K eventually. It's one of their most prized films in their historical historical run as a studio. That's what I want to say. But moving on to more interesting news, I would say. Criterion did drop their slate this week on Thursday, and this is their December slate, and they are ending the year strong. Yeah, what a great group of films here. Let's go through them. So
I don't. Is that what we do? Okay.
Is that what we do here? I don't even know.
I don't.
I'm
It's
rattled.
whatever.
Rattled.
Whatever. But they're ending with two. They got two box sets
Yes, 2 collections
and a documentary and
and a feature film.
and a feature. High school film. So yeah. So the first one we'll talk about here is I think one of the big ones. The Michael Haneke trilogy. We have the 3 films. The 7th, Containment, Benny's Video, and see, I knew I was going to misread something.
I'll say you're way off.
I know.
Samsonite. It's way off.
Benny's Video and 71 fragments of a chronological of chance. So, yeah. I know you said you've seen 2 of these, and I've seen one of these.
So these are all currently streaming on the Criterion Channel stream platform. I think I don't know if it's the first film or the second film is actually streamed on HBO Max as well.
It's Benny's Video. Benny's Video is on HBO.
Oh, okay. Is that where you watched it?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the first 3 feature films from Michael Haneke's directorial filmography. He did a lot of like TV movies early on, and then throughout, like when he was releasing these movies. From the first 2 films, just from my perspective, these are some of the more nihilistic, bleak films that you'll probably see, not unexpected from a director like Michael Haneke. His films tend to revolve in that realm. The 7th Continent is literally about the day-to-day life of the seemingly ordinary Austrian family, and the movie's done in 3 parts. So you see like one day in one year, one day in another, and then one day in another in the third year. And I won't give away anything else, but you just kind of see the monotony, the nihilism, just the regular, everyday, kind of boring life these people live. But there is a shocking twist in the third act that I won't get into because it'll ruin the whole movie for you. But it's dark, it's bleak, it's unrelenting. But Steven and I both got to see Benny's Video, and the movie opens up
It opens up with something that would probably turn most people away from it all.
If you don't turn it off in the first couple of minutes, you have a strong stomach, I guess.
Well, we'll just to put it plainly, it's animal cruelty.
Very much so, and Michael Haneke is notorious. It's not fake; it's real.
Yeah.
I can't remember which film where he actually like cuts off the head of a chicken, but that's in one of his films, and it's real. You know, it's not simulated. Non-simulated, I guess, would be the proper term, or unsimulated. But yeah, and what's the cruelty behind it is then they rewind the footage and then play it in slow motion to really just dig into you, to really get into you. And that is Michael Haneke. His films are horrific because they get under your skin. They make you feel uncomfortable, and they make you feel kind of depressed, for the lack of a better term. But yeah, Benny's Video, just what an interesting kind of character study of a movie.
Yeah, film about a kid who's obsessed with TV and he's obsessed with TV and video and making, he's obsessed with movies and video, he's all that stuff. And then along the way, it's like he kind of loses his sense of reality with what he's watching in TV and movies and what's real, what that the things have feelings and
he becomes a bit of a sociopath, this disconnection with emotion and feelings, and he kind of divulges himself into it, gives over to that, to dire consequences, and then you just see kind of the aftermath of it where he's just blank, you know what I mean? I think it's rather interesting character study and cultural study from that perspective, dealing with this whole, uh, you know, desensitizing of people, specifically youth. Though, there's always these arguments over years where like, kids are being corrupted by violent video games, violent movies, violent TV shows, and all this kind of stuff. Um, and I think maybe this movie's kind of playing into that. Granted, it's 1992 and not 2022, so obviously things are more graphic now than they've ever been before. But this movie's playing into that kind of the psychosis of it all and trying to deal with that on a very small scale, like a family of like three or four people. But obviously, it's supposed to be blown up to saying like, hey, this could be any family having to deal with this, and how do you deal with this?
Yeah.
So it's good. It's really
It's
good.
good. It's really good. Just disturbing.
Yeah, I didn't get to see 71 fragments of a chronology of chance.
Yeah, see, it's hard to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it isn't really hard to say. 71 fragments of a chronology of chance. The reason being is I watched these first two Michael Haneke's back to back, and I was like, I gotta get out.
I gotta get out of here.
I can't do it for a third round of this. For those of you who don't know, Michael Haneke is a well-known Austrian director. He's directed
funny
films.
games.
Funny Games. His remake of Funny Games. The Piano Teacher. Code Unknown. He did the movie Amour. The movie White Ribbon, which I bring up a lot, which I believe won the Palme d'Or. White Ribbon is a fascinating film, and I think it gets to be even more and more fascinating as time goes on. I won't give away, what that movie's about or its thematic depth and whatnot, but it's fascinating as time goes on in our world, kind of shift into certain cultural ways, or certain cultural ways and ideologies kind of resurface back. And this film takes place like a century ago, and we're still dealing with things like this. It's great film. But he has a few films in the collection. I still need to get Code Unknown. I still need to get Funny Games, but Funny Games is another one of those movies, Steven, where I don't find myself rewatching it anytime soon. Because it's such a disturbing movie.
Not if you're like trying to go on like a Michael Haneke marathon. You're gonna need Funny Games. I haven't seen it, but I hear his film Cachet is another one.
That's another. That doesn't have a Blu-ray release here, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because I've had a used DVD of that for about a decade. Cachet does not have a Blu-ray release, unfortunately. But that movie that could use a Blu-ray release. That's another disturbing type of movie dealing with like voyeurism and mental manipulation and stuff like that. It's good. It's really, really good. His work is fantastic if anybody wants to get into Michael Haneke, but it's not for the faint of heart because his films will disturb you. He doesn't play around. He's not messing around with you. He's gonna go for the jugular, as they say.
Good.
Yeah, I haven't seen his newest film, Happy End, from 2017. I still need to see that. The Piano Teacher is not quite a horrific film, but it's a very introspective film that is really, really good as well. The movie starring Isabelle Huppert is in that film. That has a Criterion Blu-ray if anyone's interested. So yeah, that's the Michael Haneke opening career trilogy, if you will. But moving on from there is where I shifted gears after the first two Michael Haneke films. I went with Coolie High. I needed something different. And Coolie High, I know people were buzzing about this movie when it got announced yesterday, and rightfully so. Steven, did you get a chance to see it, or have you even heard of it?
No, I hadn't heard of it, and I didn't get a chance to see it. I know it was available to watch somewhere, but I mean, obviously I'm interested, especially since I like coming of age stuff, and yeah, I mean it looks good. I mean, tell me about it.
Yeah, think of it like the film came out, I think 1975. It came out in 1975, directed by Michael Schultz. But it's set in 1964 Chicago, and this film is essentially it's a high school set film. These kids, It's about like a group of 4 or 5 friends. They're seniors in high school, and it's just kind of them hanging out and living their lives. Like going out to the movies, going out to the like local hangouts and whatnot, and talking to girls and relationships and all that kind of stuff. It's reminded me very much of things like Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, in that same kind of urban setting, in that cultural setting, but it's 1964. It's not early 90s when those other movies came out, um, or late 80s, early 90s, whatever that may be. And so you're getting that same type of cultural setting, the African American setting, the African American culture, specifically inner city settings, but it's 1964, so like their high school is segregated because it's before they desegregated the schools. And you're just seeing their culture from that perspective. You're seeing the uniqueness of that, and it's really, really good. I really found myself enjoying it a lot. I kind of wish there were more special features on here. All we're getting is a new conversation between Schultz and film scholar Raquel J. Gates, a program on the making of the film, and then a panel discussion from a 2019 tribute to Cooley High, which has a couple of the actors and the casting director and filmmaker Robert Townsend. That's kind of cool. But yeah, I think this is a really awesome movie because when I think 1970s movies that are dealing with, black cinema or African American culture and whatnot, I'm thinking of black exploitation. For example, they just had the Melvin Van Peebles box set that just came out through Criterion. So that's something that's very much in that time span, and this is a lot different than a lot of those films in there, but they're both exploring black culture at that time. Yeah, I really enjoyed the movie a lot. It's got a great soundtrack as well. A lot of Motown stuff in there. Really cool
Cool.
movie. I dug it. I
Awesome.
can't wait to kind of get this release at some point because it's gonna be. I think it's gonna look a lot better than the one we have available for streaming online.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, hopefully I sold
yeah.
it to you. Sold to
Yeah,
people
well,
online.
yeah, definitely. And speaking of good soundtracks, I bet you the Velvet Underground has a
Velvet
good one.
Underground.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
this
yeah.
documentary, right?
Documentary directed by Todd Haynes.
Yes. Did not expect that.
Yeah,
At
and this
all.
it's a pretty recent one, right? It's the last
I
couple
think
years.
2020.
Yeah. So it's a pretty recent documentary from Todd Haynes, and going into the kind of cult band, the Velvet Underground. People that are into rock and roll history probably know Lou Reed. Lou Reed's kind of a big figure throughout that time period. And he's one of him and John Cale start kind of the visionaries of the band. And I would love to. I'm probably going to pick this one up definitely because I love rock and roll documentaries. And I would love to learn a little bit more about Velvet Underground. But yeah, do you have any feelings about this?
I'm a big fan of Todd Haynes. I have a Todd Haynes section in my collection. This came out in 2021, so I want to see. I think this is going to be available to stream on Apple TV Plus. I'm not sure when. I kind of wanted to check up on that. I think it may already be streaming on there. I think it's streaming on October 15th, 2021. So yes, it should be
coming up.
2021 coming up. So it is available to stream on there. Maybe, I don't know. You may want to check up on that. But I do remember Velvet Underground. I always see their albums if I'm ever looking through vinyls at like a store or something. I think every record store has a Velvet Underground album or 2 or 3 or however many there are. But yeah, Lou Reed is of course a classic figure. This is all about their kind of their formation and I'm assuming their influence on culture and music in New York in the 1960s and all that kind of stuff. Glad to see more Todd Haynes stuff coming out. So I'm always up for that. When I initially saw this cover, the cover of this is backwards. So so I was like, "What is that?"
I can't read backwards. Damn it!
It's also like faded on a blue background, and I'm like, "What am I reading here?" Granted, I was probably half asleep when I was looking at these releases for the first time. But I want to see what we're looking at in terms of special features. Yeah, new 4K digital. Yeah, I mean Master. I mean it's a brand new movie. Hopefully it looks good. There's a conversation with Todd Haynes. Um, yeah, so there's some excerpts from some avant-garde
I mean,
movies.
the thing with documentaries is they in themselves are like big, long special features.
Yeah, in and of themselves, that's kind of how they function. They're just informative. Well,
Yeah.
they're supposed to be informative and engaging.
Yeah.
At least the good ones are.
Yeah,
But,
so, yeah.
yeah. So
Awesome.
moving on to the last thing we have here is another 3-film kind of collection. 3 films by Mai Zetterling. I did not get to watch any of these, which I hate myself for not only having one day to do so. But I just want to say, I just want to read this, synopsis here. A fearlessly transgressive, long overlooked pioneer of feminist cinema, Swedish actor turned director Mai Zetterling ruffled the feathers of the patriarchal establishment with a string of bracingly modern, sexually frank, and politically incendiary films focused on female agency and the turbulent state of the 20th century Europe. So these films, I think, all came out in the 1960s, which of course was a seemingly, I don't know if you've seen a lot of these recurring themes happening, Stephen. 1960s had a lot of politically transgressive and, troubling times in terms of things that
really?
were happening across the world.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be the case. I mean, we just talked about, Lulu the Tool, which was a film from the 1960s that's all about, workers' rights and things like that. And then you've got here, you have, women's rights is also a big movement back in the 60s and 70s, and even to this day. All of the political movements that you hear about and read about in your history classes or in articles and all that kind of stuff you're scrolling on Wikipedia about still exist today. We haven't
Okay,
figured
Andrew,
out any of these problems.
I hate to do this.
It's like a cycle that just keeps going. It's a
I hate to do.
merry-go-round that
I
never
hate to do
stops.
this. I hate to do this because I'm the one that says wrong things all the time.
What I do?
But Lulu the Tool came out in 1971. Just want to say. I just want to say it.
Damn it.
I know it's okay. You were close though. It's close to the
I was
60s.
2 years off.
I know. It happens. When you said it, and I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure I remember that saying 1970 something was when that movie came out. So I checked it.
Yeah. Good thing you checked it on me.
I just know that I fuck up all the time,
Yeah.
and you don't help me at all.
I
you
just,
just let
I
me
just
do
let
it.
you go because I think it's awkward to like stop somebody mid sentence to be like, yeah, that's
It
not how you
is,
say that.
and that's why I'm the one that needs to do it to you because I'm
Yeah.
okay with it.
Okay. You're okay with butting in. Got it.
Yeah, you're just like nah,
Yeah.
just
but,
let
yeah,
him go. Just let the kid
just
play.
Let him roll.
Just let the
roll
kid
with it.
play.
People get it. The people understand what you're saying. You're not that far off. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that's still occurring that is commented on in a lot of these movies that we cover. So the 3 movies in this set are Loving Couples from 1964, Night Games 1966, and then The Girls 1968. I really like the packaging art here. I just think it's very, artsy. It's especially there's cover art on each of these releases as well.
Well, also what's great is it's more Swedish cinema that's not Bergman.
That's not Bergman. And we just mentioned another Swedish film with the Radiance Films releases. I like how you mentioned people didn't like Bergman because all he kept talking about was like religion. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah,
much religious allegory.
Yeah, when I think Swedish film, I think Bergman, and I think the movie Thriller. Like,
oh wow, okay,
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bergman comes to mind right away. Ironically, so we're talking about Criterion, which put out that gigantic Bergman set. That's you talk about not a shelf space saver is that Bergman set. I don't even know how to display it because it's so heavy. I just have it on a top shelf, just praying it doesn't tip over because it's so gigantic.
That's where mine is. It's just on the top shelf. Yeah.
Top shelf release.
Yeah.
But these May Zetterling set is rather interesting to me. These are, like I said, these are all coming out in December. And I'm curious if this is going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be similarly structured to what we're seeing with a lot of their kind of collections lately, where you're getting the thin pack, the thin pack packaging in a box. I know they did that with The Eric Romer box set, The Six Moral Tales, which I still need to get. I know they're doing it with a lot of those lately. I just feel like I just have that feeling that's what it is. But yeah, I'm down to watch these movies. I'm wondering. I don't think any of them are streaming on the Criterion Channel. No, they're not. I was hoping beyond hope that I could still get to watch these.
Well, hopefully there's somewhere for people to watch if they're wanting to check it out. That's always, I think, key. That's the one thing I think that can be great about streaming is just giving you a chance to check it out before you put down good money for it. So, hopefully these can be available in some way for people to check them out. Unless you're just really cool with dropping probably $50 or $60 on a set.
Well, this is actually a cheaper set. I didn't notice somebody mentioning this in one of the groups on Facebook, whereas some of the other sets usually retail for about $100 or so. This one is much cheaper. Maybe it's due to maybe there are less features on here, or due to the fact that it's a lesser known director. I'm not quite sure.
Hey, and I'm noticing Alicia Malone does a feature on here.
Oh, I'm actually trying to find the features myself, so I didn't even notice that.
It says new interview
I
with
didn't scroll down
author,
far enough. There you go.
Yeah, author Alicia Malone.
Oh yeah, with author Alicia Malone. Speaking of which, I still need to get her newest book. That reminded me.
You're reminded.
Thank you. You reminded me. I reminded myself. Yeah, so there is a new 2K digital restoration. I'm assuming of all 3 films. New interview with the author Alicia Malone, and then a couple of other features and interviews here. Cool.
Awesome.
So it's a smaller slate for Criterion, only 4 releases to end the year, but they've been spoiling us the last few months of this year. So
that's 8, but we're
all set.
It's 8 films though. That's 8 films in all though.
Yeah, so it's only 4, but there's 8 films, and plus the month we just covered beforehand, and then all these months leading up to the end of the year.
The Wall-E release just wears you out by just thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, this September, October, November, and December is a hell of a 4-month run of great releases.
Yeah.
Like, damn, I'm just looking at them all here. Looking fantastic.
It's good stuff going
November
on out
sale
there.
is going to be heavy on a lot of people's wallets, I think, at Barnes & Noble.
But
let's get ourselves out of here.
Let's get out of this place. Once again, Fran Simeoni. I hope I'm probably messed that up.
I think it's Simeoni.
Simeoni. He was great, and please, go check out what he's doing over at Radiance. A lot of good stuff in this first slate, and just I think if you sign up to their newsletter, their email, you'll get emails whenever their stuff drops. So you can keep up to date with what new stuff. I'm sure we'll be hearing more soon. So, but with that said, Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Kepzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Instagram, Twitter, or my Letterboxd at Chasing Labels. Or you can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.